my man cave down here. I have a walkout basement, so I can just come in and throw my stuff around, do what I want down here. It's not very big, but so it's pretty cluttered up usually. Once in a while they clean up, take charge of everything, and a couple weeks later it's just as bad again. But it's a nice little space. This actually here is Deb had that made for me years ago, way back, 30 years ago. It was a gun chest. It is, but I don't use it for a gun chest. It's oak. And every drawer's got different stuff in it, so I keep my knives in here. This one here was a knife we did way back when we got started. It's a Big Woods Bucks limited edition knife. It's a Schrade knife with a bone handle. The handles come out. Some of them are kind of big, you know, and gaudy, but a little history there. Got my knife. I had an antler there, and I took it over to Larry. Had Larry Benoit make me a knife. Signed it up for me there. And I got various other ones. Some people had given me one. This one here is kind of cool. Young fella I guided turkey hunting had that made for me. It's a wing bone with a feather in it. Coating. It's just it's a little turkey knife. That guy signed that, I guess. Different ones. Just a bunch of stuff. Some of them I don't use, and some I do. This one I bought up in Alaska year before last when we were up there. It's caribou antler. Another guy years ago made me this one, a skinning knife. This was handmade. It's a nice skinning knife. This is a Dozier knife. These are collector's items here. It's a Dozier knife. This is like a catch-all drawer, that's all. My lucky $1 bill. Some chokes. I have everything. It looks like a bunch of junk, but everything's in order here. My chokes and stuff's in there.
What's with the lucky one?
Oh, my buddy Lars always does stuff like this. He left it on the windshield of my truck one day when I was hunting. He went by my truck and he put a $1 bill on it. Sometimes he leaves a cookie or something, or a candy bar or something on it. We just kind of do that. Windshield wiper. And the knife sharpeners and clip magazines, 7600s. And this down here is stuff I don't use. It's scopes, mounts. I got a ton of different mounts, but I don't use them too much. But I got some of them pretty nice. Got a bag of turkey beards from whenever. So about it.
Point out your wood stove setup.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is another knife. It kind of got ruined. Like one of the clients made this, and he's a real good knife maker, and this is actually etched in. They cut that underwater, he said, but it was in my storage, and it got wet outside, and it got a little pitted before I got a hold of it. And this handle on this is actually some kind of a horn from Africa, some kind of horn material. But it's pretty cool. And I got just junk in the other stuff, electronic equipment, different things. That's my stove that heats the house. This heats actually the whole house pretty much. We've got a Franklin fireplace upstairs, but this takes care of most of it. So keep it rolling here in the winter. And oh, just down here is stuff that I don't have a lot of room left upstairs, so the mounts are up there. Down here is just miscellaneous racks.
Where'd you shoot these?
Well, this one here was my main buck from 2 years ago. It's actually a small 8-pointer, but it was an old buck. His old teeth are all black. I think it's like pretty old, not old, but Jason said it was 5.5. Shot it. I wasn't tracking it. He just jumped in front of me, and it looked pretty good, so I shot it. These two here are Adirondack ones, bucks. Just did euros, and that one there is one I shot. First one I shot down the Berkshires. Actually, the only one I shot down there. First time I went down. And I was tracking a bigger one, and that one, I thought it was the one that wasn't one of them deals again. But and
Your signpost?
my signpost here. This was a signpost that I had a camera down on it, and the beavers cut it down that winter. It was near a stream, and they cut it down. So I went in the spring, and I dragged it out with my snowmobile, and I made cut a regular brown ash and made a little base for it because it was cut right at the bottom of the rub. But believe it or not, brown ash grows slow, and this is probably 6 inches at the top up here. It's more there. It's more like a foot, but from the healing. But this has 80 growth rings in it. So this tree was 80 years old. And since it's rubbed right to the center, I'm sure this was rubbed at least 60 years by bucks down in there. And I had found it before the beavers cut it down. I had found it back, would have been in the early 90s. And I've had that 5 or 6 years, so I don't know, 25 years before I had found that. This rack in there, that's my grandson. That's his moose he shot last year with me. But that rack up in there, I never had it mounted. It was the first buck I shot tracking back in 1987. I should get it mounted someday. And that was a big buck. I always called him Big Boy. I got 2 years of his antlers. I used to feed him in the winter at my place and fed him, and that one of the years there was 14 bucks there, and 8 of them would have been well over 200. But he was the biggest one. He was probably weighed 275 or something like that. And then he disappeared. 2010 was the last year I saw him, and something happened to him. He either died of old age or something happened to him. But yeah. And then we got, I like some of the old stuff. Lee Shands gave me this old picture. I always said I was born like 50 years too late or something, or maybe 100, but just some kind of cool old timers out there with killed a buck out in the woods there. They got the pack basket and stuff. And my buddy Lars gave me this. He framed it and gave me this cover of Sports Afield with Larry Benoit in it. And I've had this old tree mushroom. For a buddy of mine gave me that. I think back in the 80s it would have been. I've had it a long time. Pretty cool. And in here I got a few books. Some of my cool stuff is in here. Like I've got all the magazines Larry was in, all signed. Larry signed all of these magazines. I've got all of them. There's another one. And I got Larry's book and stuff. I got just oddball stuff. Well, we can go upstairs and look around in the living room. Ryan calls it the trophy room, but I just call it the living room. So we're up here in my living room here. People might call it a game room, but so we'll start over on one end, and I'll just kind of name off my bucks here. And actually, there's a couple of them my wife had shot, so we'll give her the kudos for those along the way. But the one over there on the bottom is the one I call the SOS buck, and there is a film of that I did. And the next one up is number 11, and that was the first 200-pound buck I shot tracking. That was back in 1988. And the one above that I call Snowfall. Shot him up in Ontario, 10-pointer. And the one above that, it's an 8-pointer with no brow points. My wife shot that one in New Brunswick back in the 80s. No, the early 90s. We had just moved up here to Jackman, and that one weighed 213. And the one above that is my first muzzleloader buck I shot, and that weighed like, I don't know, 175 or something, you know, the end of muzzleloader season. And the next one up above that is I called that one the Swale Bog buck. I shot that one in Ontario. And the one above that's Camp 6 buck. That's Ontario. And then coming down the other side, this left side, is I call Thin Horns. I remember I shot that one in 89, a year after I shot number 11. And that one was 235. Some of them I don't know the weights. In Ontario, we didn't have a scale most of the time. And then the next one down is my sandwich buck. That was 195 or something, 196. And then the next one down is my dueling buck, and that's on the cover of my book, the first book of the reprinted book. And that one was 200 even, but it was 7.5 years old. And the next one down is Wingnut, and that one was 214, I think. And the next one below that is, oh, that one there was my first Ontario buck. That one I called the Island buck, I guess. And then the next one below that is Mr. Casual. I think he was 216. And then in the corner is this is Ontario buck. I call Rackosaurus for obvious reasons. And that buck weighed just 280. We did have a scale that year, and he was 280. And this next one here I call Fat Horns, and that's pretty obviously why I call him that. Old buck. That's probably the oldest buck I shot. He only had slivers of teeth in the front. I'm sure he was 11, 12 years old. And he weighed 220 on Thanksgiving Day. I think I shot that buck. Or maybe the day after Thanksgiving. And then this is Brutus, a buck you've probably seen the film about on YouTube. He was 208 and a muzzleloader. And then this next one is Mr. G, and he was 196 the day after Thanksgiving. And this buck here I shot in Montana. It's the only one shot in Montana. It was actually a big buck for out there. It weighed 191, which is big for out there. And then in here is I called this one Pretty Boy, because he just was, you know, they get kind of faded. That was back in the 90s, and that one was 203 or something, I don't know, 201, 203. And the next one over the short points is Mr. B, and he was like 195 Thanksgiving Day. And then the next one is the Hog Buck, and that one there was an older buck, pretty heavy horns, but That one was my heaviest Maine buck, addressed 260. And that was back in the 90s sometime. And we'll go up the stairwell here. Get a little light on this subject, maybe. This one here is Percival. Shot him over northeastern more in Maine when we didn't have any snow here. I ran over and shot that one over there. But he's kind of unique because he's got a real dark brown coat. It's almost a chocolate brown. It's the darkest one I've ever even seen. But and he weighed, I don't know, just over 200. And then this one here is I call the King. And this was a really big buck. I shot him the end of muzzleloader season. He still weighed 220. It's one of them ones, probably 275 earlier in the season. And then this one here with those crazy kind of horns. That one there, I shot, that one I call the Thunderstorm buck. And he weighed 215, I think, or something. And didn't shoot him in the snow. Didn't track that one. That one was in a still hunting up in the hardwoods. And the next one is another Ontario buck there. Don't know what it weighed. And then this one up at the top is one my wife shot in Maine here back in the 90s, back when she was cooking. She went out, cooked for the hunters, and went out, shot it, tracked it, shot it. And I think it weighed 185 or something, but kind of a cool one. So that's it. And then we got my moose from 2013. The one I shot last year, I didn't shoot it, my grandson did. I got drawn, but my grandson did. And then the two elk are Colorado elk, and the one on the left is the last one I shot in Colorado. And the one on the right, my wife shot in Colorado. Well, that's the tour. I got to keep adding to the collection.